part of the program. I myself have been I'm a long time resident of the Yakima Valley, and having worked in this area for great many years, I ran the first NRO program that had some of your same day care centers that you now have in place. We had one in we covered 9 counties, and so our staff was very small compared to what you have right now. I'm really impressed with how big Inspire Development Center is, and I want to say that I really respect the people that are working in the front line, especially you as center manager, because you deal with the everyday problems of running a program with real life people and real life children. So you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, let alone trying to comply with federal regulations and state regulations and all of the other stuff that goes with having the staff to supervise and train. So with that, I would like to tell you a little bit of the story. I'd like to make my presentation very informal, mainly because like on the radio program that we have now, we're trying really to start a conversation with the community. And we're really trying to start a conversation between the community people and the experts and the medical providers and the treatment providers and major university representatives. Because that discussion needs to happen between us, the people, and the other people that try to serve us. Some time ago, about 3 years ago, we all had personal family situations where, in my case, I had 2 nieces who had gone and were still going on through some very serious problems with drug addiction. And I'm pretty sure that each and every one of you know of somebody that is in that situation, or a family that is in that situation. One member of the family is affected by drug addiction. You know that it involves the whole family. And the whole family suffers for it in many cases. So we sat down, 5 of us, at Rayo Cadenas, one of their little classrooms, and there were 5 of us. We had a representative from the Yakima Neighborhood Health Center, my sister, Gilbert Alani, who's the director of Radio Cadena, and some other representative from, I believe, the Yakima Valley Combo Clinic. And we started to talk about drug addiction. We had heard about the opioid epidemic, but we didn't know enough about it as to how it related to our particular situation. And so in reading a little bit about it through our discussions, and since that initial meeting, the groups started to meet with more people, and different agencies began to gather. And by that time, after a year, we had over 25 different organizations and about 54 different individuals attending the meeting. So we started to call ourselves from a community committee to a consortium. And within that consortium, we started to attract the attention of medical doctors. So Dr. Bielski from Pacific Northwest University showed up. He's an expert on opiates. Dr. Michael Parchman, who is an opioid expert, working for Kaiser Permanente. Dr. Ileana Ponce, who worked for the University of Washington with a PhD degree from University of Nicaragua, having had over 15 years of experience in community education on health. People of that category began to come to our meetings. So we started to draft a small abstract. We attempted to get some money from the Department of Health and other agencies and foundations, and we could not get their attention. We wrote letters, even to the governor himself. We got no response. And so we approached a couple of local legislators. One was Representative Bruce Chandler and Senator Honeyford. We said, we have this concept of dealing with the opiate epidemic, and we would like for you to consider Radio Cadena, having been around at that time for almost 40 years. Why don't you ever consider us as possibly a good place to start on community education through the airwaves? And it seems like we're almost always overlooked. You already overlooked us when you got the tobacco money. And we got very little. I know, because I was attending the meetings at a cross-cultural Washington State committee. And the people that were being hired to do community education through the airwaves, in this case, the television, and also ads, billboards, and stuff like that. They really did not have a feel for what the community response would be like, or how to address the community, or how to convey good messages of prevention on the use of tobacco. Are you going to consider us? We've been around for 40 years now. And so we proposed a small concept about how we could actually reach people through the airwaves. In that concept paper, we also wrote that we wanted to do some community education through workshops, through conferences, and to reach out to the schools and other nonprofit organizations. Throughout all these years, and I'm calling it now years, okay, because 3 years is, for me, at my age, it's a lifetime. Okay? People like Rick Garza and other representatives from Inspire have consistently attended our meetings. And when it really counted, when we were talking to the higher-ups from Olympia, Rick Garza was there. And so were some of the other representatives from other organizations. And for that, I thank Rick personally for having supported us. Now, opioid, I just read an article today, because the conversation goes in this way. The National Institute of Health says that there are 130 people that die per day of drug overdose. 130 people die per day. Now, in some of the other papers and studies that we have read, and believe me, we have done a lot of that. It goes back to our personal story, to my personal story. You see, one day, some years ago, before the opioid epidemic was ever talked about, one of my nieces was 12 years old, and she had they found a cancer, a rare cancer that affects only adults on her right shoulder. And they were talking about amputating her arm from her. And they did a lot of radiation work on her, and they saved her arm, but very little was left in the upper part. But we didn't know really what was really going on, except the fact that she went through it, she survived it. She went through a period of treatment, radiation, over, and taking pills for pain. Drug prescribed medication by the doctor. They lived next door to us. And as time went, my parents, who also lived next door to them, started to miss some items from the garage. Over a period of years, my father lost different kinds of equipment, and we were blaming people, strange neighbors, whatever they were, people, the robbers, stealers, whatever you might call them, thieves, as doing that. Until one day, when my father went for treatment in Seattle for cancer, one of my in-laws, she saw my niece and other people climbing it's a two-story house, climbing a ladder to get into the upper window to get inside the house. And then we started to put things together as to why. What was happening? Why was she doing that? Having spent some time in Daily Yakima, I ran across a lot of different people, and it seems like the drug problem is pretty heavy, pretty deep. It runs very deep in the Yakima Valley. So going back to the opioid addiction, we have several missions in mind that I personally would like for us to promote. One of them is an addiction of any kind. It's a disease, plain and simple. It's another form of disease, but it is a disease. So that's why insurance programs cover them. They cover the treatment. They cover the therapy, group therapy, whatever. We have in our mind a stigma about those individuals. We, the bad people. Some of them, because of their disease, some of them are in jail. Some of them are in prison. Many die. And because it is chronic, it is progressive, but it is treatable also if prevented on time or if caught on time. And those are the kinds of messages that we want to promote over the airwaves, that there is a solution to some of those problems. For the last few months, I've had the opportunity to talk to people who are attempting to help other people and in providing that kind of what they call the medically assisted treatment program, the MAT program. Has anybody heard about the MAT program? Raise your hand if you have. The MAT program, medically assisted treatment. No. Okay. I don't know very much about it, but I'll tell you what. If you're a drug addict, one of the reasons why people sometimes do those things that I talked about, state agents, all that kind of stuff, criminal stuff, that we consider, is that the opioids that doctors prescribe, well, let me backtrack a little bit. The doctors themselves started this epidemic. Doctors themselves started this epidemic. I don't think they did it intentionally. They just did not know what they were prescribing or how addictive they were. They didn't know. So back in 1996, companies like Purdue Pharma started to manufacture oxycodone, one of the medications that Percocet, another one that is commonly prescribed by doctors. I asked Dr. Michael Parchman, who's an opioid expert, and I said, how long does it take for somebody to become a drug addict? And his answer was, he wrote back to me, he said, 1 week. Well, 1 week. I asked my sister, because of her other, her nieta, you know, how long did it take her to become a drug addict? And she says, the first time. And she became a heroin addict almost overnight. And that was the reason why my sister was at this meeting 3 years ago. The problem is serious. Within the period of 1996, 1999 to 2017, there's been about over 217,000 deaths in this country of drugs. So we do have a serious problem. How serious is it in rural America? We don't know. All we know is that a lot of rural areas, like the Yakima Valley, people are basically low income. Their educational level is not as high as some other areas. Insurance coverage for health is not as good as some other areas. So that you being in the migrant programs and daycares, you know that to qualify, you have to be in an area where you have a high-risk children or not continuing on to education or high wages, nothing like that. Yeah, we got some water. My notes say this morning I was looking over my notes. It said most opiate-related medications by the way, they're all based on heroin, or prescribed for doctors for adults. And they're prescribed pretty easy by doctors for pain. Sometimes for depression. It says here, for every 5 people, talk about young people now. For every 5 people that begin to use heroin, 4 started with prescribed drugs. 1 in 4 out of every young person have used it incorrectly. For every 3 people, young people, 2 have abused prescribed drugs. They steal it from family members. They're easy to get from the family. And they're especially dangerous for young people because their bodies and their minds, their brains are not fully developed yet, like an adult. There are a great number of lawsuits against some of these companies nationwide. And I'll tell you why. Because the drug abuse has become very expensive for state government to sustain, and also for employers. The economy suffers, not showing up for work. Lots of wages, more hospitalization. In this state, they're experiencing those things. The high impact of what happens in the emergency rooms. And let me go back to my personal story about my niece. A lot of us had the same mentality as a lot of other people. She was a bad person. She was the bad niece. And in some cases, some of us became angry. Not realizing at her, not realizing that she was a sick person. She's still sick. Now she's almost 50 years old. She's 6 kids. So the effect on the kids, some of them were affected when they were born. Some were not. She affected the family in such a way that she became an outcast for a long time. Still is on her own, even though we tried to bring her in. She's on her own now. The impact on young people, and this is where I'm coming from, is that sometimes there are other factors that come into play on drug addiction. One of them is genetics, and one of them is the environment. I was very fortunate to go to a an opioid epidemic conference in Seattle last year, in November. And some of those doctors had had done some other studies, and one of them was Dr. Michael Pushman, a member of the group, of the consortium, our own consortium. And have you ever heard of the ACEs program, the ACEs project? Trauma-related. Okay, I think that maybe you should look into that. Because trauma does affect, sometimes they think they affect the genetic composition of the person. And I'll tell you why, because when a depending upon the stage that she's at, a pregnant woman going through a traumatic experience her body will generate several chemicals in the body. And those chemicals can affect the fetus, can affect the development of the child. So that when they do assessments of the individual at the time of enrollment for treatment therapy or some kind of therapy, they ask a lot of those other questions about the traumatic experiences of a person. And if you were born into a dysfunctional family, what they call a dysfunctional family, then those children are going to go through all kinds of problems, experience situations in the home that will impact the person as they grow up. And so that later, if you're injured on the farm, or you're suffering from depression, or you had surgery, any kind of surgery, especially major one, you are going to be prescribed some kind of a painkiller. And believe me, how many of you have had some kind of surgery where you had to have some kind of a painkiller out of it? And you're glad that you're being prescribed with some kind of a painkiller because no pain, And for that, we're grateful. Some people might become too grateful and start taking, maybe I don't get this feeling of this pill, maybe if I take two, get the same high. Then at some point you might take 3 pills because that's even better. It keeps you. But at some point, somebody drug overdose, then you take too many pills and then you accidentally die. And that's what happens. Is that people go through what you might call withdrawals, where the body reacts in different ways, and that's my story. Is that and that's the story of a lot of other people. Is that we're trying to raise the awareness of people about the dangers of opiates, and so in our radio programs, we try to bring in the experts. We try to tell people that it is time that you become aware. It is time for you to look at the. Sometimes we like to share drugs, you know. And I read an article from California where the grandparents are now taking care of kids because the mother is somewhere else. And so, or her pills, in my case, my mother lost her pills, painkillers when my niece showed up, and the bottle would disappear. You know, they were doctor prescribed. And my mother went without painkillers for a month because she could not get another prescription. Those are the kind of things that we're all going through. And the last thing that I want to say is that because this issue is so important, I would like to start talking to people that you're serving, the farm workers, families in your particular area. And we're talking about maybe continuing the conversation with people that you're serving and giving them the information. And to that extent, this is my work. This is the kind of work that I like to do. I like to talk directly to people and give them the information that they need. To me, I don't look at the level of education of the person. Because my parents were, they only went to the second grade, both of them. But their dream was that somebody from the family would go to school and learn something and do something else different from work to make a living. I myself, when I came to Sunnyside schools, I could not speak a word of English. I was 12 years old, and I was still not able to understand. I'll never understand. ¿Qué está diciendo? No, it didn't make any sense. El inglés no, lo más no. So, if we can provide this real basic information to people and make them aware that no es cosa de juego ya anymore. I appreciate doctors, I really do, and I really appreciate the fact that they heal people, But we also have a responsibility to make sure that we do the right thing too. And so, in ending my conversation with you is that not only are we looking at treating people with drugs to calm down the craving, but they also need some kind of counseling, some kind of group therapy to give them something to start developing a different kind of life. And I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but there's a little bit of awareness where we have to convince that person that he's not a bad person. He's not a bad person. That there is something in there that he or she can do to start living the life a little bit different. I don't like to get too much into this because people might think that there you go, born again Christian, But I really think that the spiritual side, very easy, we feel there needs to be developed. And one of them is, if nothing else, working on the conscience of the individual. Learn between what is right and wrong. Learn to treat people the way you like to be treated. The golden rule. Listen before you speak. Learn how to listen. Those are all important concepts to have an open mind. And that's the kind of group therapy, that's the kind of conflict that I'm talking about. It's a combination of both, the medical and the other part of the behavior. And believe me, the state of Washington is working on that. They call it, they have fancy word, integration of the medical and the behavior. But to me, this is what it is. Okay. So we have Rebecca. I hope I didn't bore you, but
All right, you guys, so my name is Rebecca. Sorry, I have a little bit of cough, but so what I do at KDNA is I am the events organizer, and then of course working for a nonprofit. That means you kind of do a little bit of everything. So I would probably be the one that you would have most contact with if you wanted us to do a presentation, like one thing was saying, with your families. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once I actually do this training that I'm going to do. And the training that I'm going to do is more so based off of what to do in case of an overdose. And the reason why I decided to do this PowerPoint and this presentation with you guys today is because it covers what opioids are, gives you a little idea of it, but more importantly, what do we do now that we have an epidemic happening and someone around us overdoses. I believe that this training should be, and along with other people, should be something that everybody should know how to do, just like we all know how to do CPR, and every year or every 2 years we have to redo the CPR training, right? It's the information that you say, when am I gonna need it? But when you do need it, you're glad you had it. So what I'm gonna start with first, if you guys look into your guys' folders, there's a purple sheet right at the front. I know Martin kind of went over a couple of things that are on there, but we wanted to do somewhat of a pre-survey, see what you guys already know, the common knowledge of what opioids are, and then at the end we'll do something a little bit different, still a survey, but just so that we know how good of a training I did, what I need to improve in, and maybe what other information we need to be talking about when we're doing these presentations. So I'll give you a little bit of time to fill that out. And then if you guys just want, once you guys are done, just rip it out, and then Araceli will pass by and pick them up, and then I'll get started. So go ahead and finish doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and start on the presentation. So what we're talking about when we're talking about what to do in case of an overdose is there is something called naloxone, and that is actually just a nasal spray, and I will kind of go over what that all means and how to administer it. So what is an opioid? Anybody know what an opioid is? So a painkiller, yep. Essentially a painkiller. Of course, in medical terminologies, we always have to use these crazy big words or just really weird words to describe something, right? So that's exactly what an opioid is. It is a type of medication. Some of the opioids that we would be more used to hearing are Vicodin, oxycodone, Percocet, diluted fentanyl, MS cotton, and methadone, right? And what is an opioid overdose? Opioids slow down your breathing. So they are a contradiction to what your heart rate's supposed to be doing. So it'll drop your heart rate a little. When you are in an overdose or when someone is overdosing, your breathing slows down way too much or completely stops. So essentially, you stop breathing. If your brain can't get enough oxygen, then you can potentially die. you can overdose minutes or even hours after using opioids. So like any other medication, it doesn't have an effect right away. Sometimes we take allergy medicine, and depending on which one affects us faster, that's the one we go for, right? Sometimes, like when you're traveling, you take medication for nausea. If you know you're gonna be sick, you take it an hour before you get on the airplane. So there's sometimes it can be a quick effect, sometimes it can take a lot longer and it can take hours, and it can be hours later. And you might start to feel really sleepy, but eventually you can pass out and you'd stop breathing. The reason why I think, from what I've researched and what I found out, is that the reason why a lot of people misuse opioids, it's not that they're trying to abuse them, they just don't know. And I can say that from experience, not myself, but family members of mine, I've seen them misuse it. I didn't know they were misusing it until I started doing the research on this. Just the other day we were at dinner and one of my aunts was taking medication. You know how on the bottle it tells you don't drink alcohol, don't do this, eat with it. We're at dinner. Who's gonna remember that the medication she took 2 hours ago, she forgot that she can't drink alcohol because she hardly ever drinks alcohol. But then we're sitting at dinner, everyone's ordering a drink. She now has a drink in her hand, and now she is misusing the medication that she had, because it strictly says on there, don't drink alcohol. If her tolerance for it is a lot lower than other people, she can't stop breathing because it's contradicting. Alcohol makes your heart rate slow down, right? You are much slower to react to things. So if you're taking a pain medication that's also slowing down your heart rate, what happens when those two mix together? Your heart rate can drop completely and you can stop breathing. Essentially, you can die. We wouldn't have known this until I told everybody when we were at dinner. I said, aren't you taking this medicine? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, then stop breathing. And she's like, oh yeah, I forgot, right? It just slips our mind. We, as parents, as humans, we have so much on our plate that we forget some things. It's perfectly fine. So what causes an overdose? Using after your tolerance has dropped, after detox. So someone, for example, that has gone through a rehab, they come out of it and they find themselves in a situation where they are going to use again. They think that because they've built up a tolerance before they went through detox and before they went through rehab, that they can take the same amount. Your body's not used to it, what's going to happen? You're going to overdose on it. Heroin strengths vary. You can't tell how strong it is or what else is in it by how it looks. So sometimes people who are addicted to drugs will get something off the street. They don't know if it's mixed in with something. They don't know how potent it is. And so that can lead to an overdose as well. Mixing opioids with benzos, alcohol, or other opioids, or even mixing them with cocaine. Using pain meds more often or at a higher dose than prescribed to you. Using someone else's opioid pain medication that may be too strong for you. Or using alone, you're more likely to die if no one is there to help. And what I mean by this is, like, for example, my dad has gout in his leg. And he gets prescriptions for ibuprofen because he's a truck driver, so he clearly cannot have opioids and then be driving on the road. He can't have pain medication, so they give him a stronger dose of ibuprofen. Who would have ever thought that ibuprofen that's a little bit stronger, someone says, hey, I need ibuprofen, and you hand them one of yours. That one, you are sharing your medication, you're not supposed to, but you might be giving it to someone that it wasn't prescribed to and you don't know what other medication they have, so that's how it's mixed. These are all common things that happen. I believe they're common because in my family we don't intentionally try to misuse our medications, but it happens. And I've heard from other people that we do presentations for, oh yeah, my comadre comes over and she has a headache, so I hand her one of my little pastillas. It's a thing that happens in our houses, in our community, and then we need to figure out what we do when something like this happens. So what are the signs of an overdose? Anybody know what the signs of an overdose are?
They make weird noises, they'll wake up.
They can pass out or they're making some...
Or do whatever.
Yep, because they stop getting oxygen, right? So some of the signs is you won't wake up, your breathing will slow down or you'll completely stop breathing. You get pale gray skin, your blue lips or fingertips, or you start snoring. So you're like in a deep sleep almost. What happens in the video essentially is that the girl's sister overdosed, or she passed out and she was laying on the couch, so obviously she doesn't know that she didn't show up somewhere, right? What first happens the first time around, what happens is that the sister shows up knocking on the door. She's like pounding on the door and she's looking to see if she sees her sister in there. And what would you do in a situation like that? You show up and someone's passed out and they are doing they have all the symptoms of an overdose. It is the same thing as you would if you were going to do CPR. You would call 911 and you would stay with them and try to wake them up, right? So one of the things that this nasal spray would be is that it would help you to save a person's life in a sense of you're giving them more time so that the ambulance can come and assist. A lot of the times what we find is that someone has had an overdose, but by the time you find them, you don't know if it's just barely happened or if it's been hours. We don't know that. All we know is that this person is having the signs of an overdose and we need to get them help. The first thing that we would do is you would try to wake up the person. If they're not responding and you see that they are clearly not breathing, you would call 911 and the first thing you have to say is when you talk to the operator, the person is not breathing. That's the #1 step that you will hear anybody that tells you that the fastest way to get ambulance to you is to say the person is not breathing. That automatically makes you the #1 priority for first responders. That will direct them if they have a multiple car accident, whatever it is, that you are one of the first priorities if people are somewhere and you need to get help. Then you would just administer the nasal spray. It literally is like the ones that you take, like that you can get over the counter. It's a super small bottle. It's a one-time use. You would open it up, put it on their nose, and just spray it in there. What that does is you would check for breathing. Now, if you are not comfortable doing CPR, you would just lay them on their side and stay with the person. There's this law called the Good Samaritan Law, which means that if you are caught in a situation where there's illegal stuff happening, and it's more so geared, I always think like more towards students that are at parties, right? They freak out and they take off running. We did a presentation yesterday and that's what everybody said. Well, if someone overdose, I book it. We don't want to do that. And so what we explained to them was if you stay with them, you actually will not get in trouble. If you take off running and they catch you, you're going to get in trouble. But stay with them, call 911 and you're safe. They can't prosecute you for anything because you are trying to save a life. I mean, I think that's a pretty good reward. And then, so what we are suggesting and what we're trying to do with a couple of other organizations is get this spray and this training done and have it implemented into schools. Have it be part of a first aid kit. Have it be like an AED. It's a one-time use, but if you have it there, just in case, right? We have an AED, we don't want to use it, but if we have to, it's there. And what we do is that we spread the word about opioid epidemic and what's happening. We don't want to just tell people and scare people off and say, oh my gosh, don't take your pastillas because they can be bad for you. We're trying to educate people on how to use it, the safe way of using it, how not to misuse, and how if you're stuck in a situation where somebody is misusing it, and overdoses, how to help them. How many more lives would be saved if we could get that extra time to help, right? And the nasal spray, what they say is, it's not gonna like reverse the whole overdose. You still have all of the receptors and stuff, everything in your brain. What it's doing is that it's putting a block to it so that you are not in that moment going through the overdose symptoms and you have enough time to get help. So it's literally just a barrier saying, here's the opioids, I'm on this side of the fence, help's on its way, it's protecting me until someone gets here to help me. And that's why they suggest that you stay with them, because if you do the spray and then let's say you take off and the ambulance shows up and sprays them again, it's not gonna make a difference. It's not like a double effect and then you gave them too much of something. It's just gonna put up that barrier to say, you have time to get here. The minimum that it saves time is 30 minutes, but it can last up to a couple, like 4 or 5 hours, I believe it is. 30 minutes is more than enough time for ambulance to show up, and then you would tell them, they stop breathing, I administered the nasal spray, and then they take off from there, and then they would handle it, right? So we're not having to like keep messing with them or anything. One of the big things too is when you want to figure out if someone just passed out because they fainted or if they passed out from an overdose, is that if you get your knuckles and you put it against their chest and you rub it really hard, it's gonna hurt. So you'll come back. That's a way to wake people up. Try it on someone, just randomly go up to like your partner, or they'll wake up and be like, what are you doing to me? Like, why does my chest now hurt? But that's how you can tell the difference between someone that's overdosed, because someone that's overdosed is not going to be able to feel that. They're not going to be able to feel that you're trying to wake them up. So then you know that's a way to separate from someone just passed out to someone is having an overdose. The same thing is that with these presentations and what we're trying to do is we're educating people, but we don't want to just educate ourselves and educate the certain businesses. We want to educate the community. So part of what Martin was talking about doing presentations to your families is that we want to be able to educate them on how to use their prescriptions correctly and how to ask the questions. A story that I think coincidence or whatever it may be, when we started this job, me and my coworker got in a car accident. We went to the hospital, and the first thing, we're good, nothing happened to us other than we were bruised up a little bit, but I went into the hospital and they said, what's your pain level, right? That's one of the first things they ask, what's your pain level? And of course, me thinking, I just got this job, I need to start doing my research, let me do my research in this hospital setting. I said my pain level is a 7. But by the time I was done with it, my pain level was at a 9. I had no broken bones, I had nothing dislocated, I just had muscle spasms in my neck. But I specifically said, I do not want any pain medication. I personally don't even take Tylenol. If I take Tylenol, it's because I've had a really rough couple of days. But that's like once, maybe once a year that I will take a Tylenol. And I'll have to take like half of one, because if not, I feel really dizzy and it's just not a good sign for me. But normally if I have a headache or something, it's either I forgot to drink water or I need to go get myself a Red Bull, because I need some caffeine in my life. But I told them I didn't want any pain medication. And I told them throughout the whole visit that I had, that they were doing x-rays and everything, I said I didn't want any pain medication 4 to 5 different times. They sent me a prescription to my pharmacy for ibuprofen, and it wasn't even the strongest one they could give me. It was like 600. I know that I probably would need it, and they kept telling me how much pain I would be in the next day because I was still in shock. But I can handle pain pretty well, so I was fine with the ibuprofen. Then the nurse said, oh, and by the way, here's a prescription for some hydros. I was like, but I repeatedly told you guys I did not want them. And they're like, well, you might need it so you can have it. You don't have to get it filled, but if tomorrow you feel bad, you can go and get it filled. You don't have to come back into us. So they were making it easier for themselves, because I was not going to be one less person having to walk into the emergency room to ask for a stronger medication. But nobody there knew my life story. Nobody knew if I had at one point abused them. No one knew if at one point someone in my family had abused them, that if I have them in my medicine cabinet, they can get to that, right? No one knew my story other than I was just a person that was in a car accident. I walked in here to get checked out. They gave me that prescription, and when I went to go fill it, for the sake of just filling it because they said I was gonna need it, they prescribed it to me wrong. So I asked her multiple times not to get it. Then they gave it to me, and the doctor prescribed me to use it more often than what was needed. That guidelines by the CDC was that it could only be every 6 hours for the amount of pills they wanted me to take. And it was a vague, take 1 to 2 every 4 hours. Or take 1 every 6 hours. This is something that happens for someone that speaks English. I asked, do you have the information in Spanish for me? The nurse looked at me and said, you speak proper English, so why do you need it in Spanish? I just want to know if you have it in Spanish. I can look it up for you. So they didn't even have it on hand to be like, yeah, let me get that for you or anything like that. Then she asked again when she brought it to me, why do you need it? I said, because my mom speaks Spanish. So if I'm taking a medicine and something happens to me, my mom has to know what the effects of it are so that she can read the paper, right? And a lot of our families are like that. The students may speak English, but the parents only speak Spanish, or they speak very broken English. You best believe that I called later and complained because I was at the pharmacy and had to wait longer to get my prescription filled. But also they had to call the doctor, the prescribing doctor, and say, you need to change it because you gave her too many pills in less amount of hours. What if they gave me ibuprofen before I left. What if I go home, I sleep, I wake up in an hour because I'm in excruciating pain? Okay, the doctor said to take 1 to 2. I'm gonna take 2 because my pain level is now at a 14, not at a 10, at a 14. What's gonna happen with the ibuprofen and then the 2 pills that I take? And then I put an alarm because I don't wanna feel this pain anymore for 4 hours instead of the 6 hours that's recommended. I've now taken, by 8 hours, taken stronger ibuprofen than I ever take, 4 hydros. I probably would have had some symptoms of an overdose, right? I would have felt really, really weird. For someone that doesn't even drink Tylenol on any type of basis, over-the-counter Tylenol. And those are the things we want to educate people on, is to know that they're allowed to ask questions. They're allowed to say, I don't want this, don't give it to me. What is the other option? The fact that I wasn't given an option like, hey, we're gonna send you to physical therapy, we're gonna send you to the chiropractor because you don't have anything dislocated, you just have muscle spasm, and the only thing that's gonna help is to stretch out your muscles and have you moving around instead of just walking around all stiff. Those are the things that we want to educate people on, and I strongly believe that even though I was in a car accident, it was for a reason. Because now I have my own personal testimony to what I'm trying to teach people. Now they can put a face to a story, and I don't say, well, someone in Mexico, this happened to them. It's like, no, it happened to me in the hospital that I go to because it's in my city, it's in my town. We want to educate people on knowing that if they have questions about it, they can call their doctor's office and say, I heard about this presentation, I heard this during a presentation, during a training at my kid's school. Okay, now I have questions. They can call back. Just because they have that prescription now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to, that's just what they have to do because they didn't ask at the initial appointment. We want to do it from the children to the parents to the people prescribing it. Because if we have a chain effect, if the doctors are starting to pay attention more to what they're prescribing, they're going to be more careful with it. Parents are going to be more careful with it. It's not going to just be some medicine that their doctor gave them, and because he's a doctor, he knows what's going on, right? We sometimes don't realize what we even have in our medicine cabinet. We don't realize that our teenagers already know what this stuff is and how to make it so that it feels good and you get this really good high off of it. They sometimes don't know that their children know these things because we have internet and everybody can research everything now. And everything spreads like wildfire. So just like the Super Bowl and all the bad comments about the Super Bowl came out with the halftime show, we want opioid epidemic and education to be one of those things that people talk about, and that when you pull up something, there's a commercial, there's some information for you to click on so we can get students, parents, and the whole community ready to to fight this on with the rest of us, because we can't do it by ourselves. So thank you so much for you guys' time. And with that, I will leave you guys with the post survey, which is a blue one. If you can fill that out for me, and if you have any other comments, just go ahead and write them down at the bottom. You don't have to put your name on it or anything like that. If you guys think that a presentation or a workshop for your center would be great, you can email me. I put my contact information in the folder. And we are doing one at our center. And it's going to be on May 16th. We can do it there, or we can come out to your guys' centers and do a presentation for your parents and your families. Thank you. Araceli is going to be passing out this little baggie. I just want to show you guys kind of how to use it. It's pretty self-explanatory and it has instructions on the back. This is a way that people are putting their forces together to help keep drugs and just medication sitting in your medicine cabinet. Is what you can do. It doesn't have to be like your blood pressure medicine doesn't have to go in this. It's for the pain medications, the stronger medicines that people can take and they can mess with, and then they can potentially have bad consequences from. All that you do is you rip open the bag, you put your pills in it, you put a little bit of water, and you close it back up. It's like a Ziploc. Shake it up. The pills will still be in there after you open it, but it deactivates the chemicals in it. So you would just shake it up, and then you just toss the whole bag in the garbage.
Just made warm water.
Warm water.
Or warm water.
Okay.
And shake like.
Warm water and shake for 30 seconds. And this is also to help because a lot of people think that you throw your pastillas down the toilet and flush it. That gets back into our water systems, and we're finding it in our fish that we fish and then we consume. So this is a way to keep that away. So we just want people to start using these types of things or anything else. You can find a whole bunch of these things on Amazon now. But she's passing some out so you guys can have them. And then also if you think of someone that might be interested in getting one, we have them at our radio station. You can walk in and say, hey, I just want a deactivation system. Or tell your friends, hey, I want something where I put my pastillas and I can throw away. They'll hand this to you. We speak Spanish and English there. If you speak sign language, we'll figure it out.